Welcome into the Where You're Going podcast. I'm your host, John Little. It is so great to have you back with us for another week. We believe that where you're going is so much better than where you've been. Are you stuck right now? It's not even about where you are right now. It's about who you are becoming. That's what we're passionate about here on this show, encouraging you and prodding you along in that. I tell you, this has been a challenging series. We're in the third part of our three-part series on forgiveness. Lee Richardson, off the bat, she was so great from a counselor's perspective to talk about unforgiveness and how it can have a hold on us. And then we heard from Peggy Easterling, a practical, very powerful story on how she's been able to forgive multiple people in her life for wrongs done to her. And now we're going to go at it from a biblical perspective, but at the same time, just a really amazing, down-to-earth conversation with one of my good friends, Pastor Jason Hillier from Valley Creek Church in Flower Mound, Texas. He's the campus pastor there, and one of the people that has really poured into my life in these last 3 years as I've wrestled with forgiveness and unforgiveness and even some of that rising back up in me a time or two. So this is an incredibly encouraging conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Here's my friend, Pastor Jason Hill.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been really looking forward to this. We've been on this path, this journey of forgiveness over the last few weeks. I don't know if this happens to you. Okay, I'm not a preacher, but when I am trying to focus on something or teach on something or think I've got something moderately figured out, God tells me, no, you don't quite have this figured out yet.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And then you get taken another pass and another pass and another pass. So exactly.
And I just wanted to start with, how did you get into ministry? How did this all start for you?
I have absolutely no idea. No, I'm just kidding. So I did 10 years of business before I was ever on staff at a church. And quite frankly, I never thought I would be a pastor. Like when I look back on that, and sometimes I'll tell the story of I used to tell my friend growing up that he was going to be a great pastor, but there was no way I was going to be.
Right.
And part of the reason I felt like that is I was like, man, pastors are kind of gluttons for punishment. I don't know if I want to do that as a full-time job. And it's classically, if you say never to God, those are some of the times he's like, let's wait and see what happens. And so 10 years in business, I really felt strongly that the Lord was calling me to serve at the church I love, Valley Creek Church in Flower Mound, Texas. And so yeah, I approached our lead pastor one day and said, is it possible that maybe I would ever be on staff? Does that sound crazy? And we started that conversation, and that was 12 years ago, and kind of the rest is history from then on. So
wow. 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just starts with that little question, and maybe this is not a place I plan to go, but sometimes, probably people that are watching right now are thinking, when I was a teenager, I thought I was called to be in ministry, but then it felt like a little bit of it was more holy to do that. But now I'm coming out of, the professional world, and now I actually feel legitimately called. Like, what were the questions that you were asking yourself during that time?
Well, let me start with this. I want to be really clear that working at a church is absolutely not more holy than anything else that God's called you to.
No, exactly. So, that was a broken thinking from my teenage youth. I remember specifically thinking, if I give my life to ministry, oh my gosh, all the plans that I had, I'm just going to be living like a monk for the rest of my life. And obviously, broken thinking, but I just feel like I'm probably not the only one who felt that way growing up in church.
Yeah, I think the way that I would describe it to people, this is how I think you would know the difference on if you were going to do vocational ministry, full-time vocational ministry or not. And here's what it was for me. I started to realize that I was running out of time to do the amount of ministry that God had placed in my heart.
Come on.
When I thought about my 40 hours a week at a different job, that was great because that is its own ministry, and there's absolutely a way to carry hope into whatever area of life that I'm called to work in. But for me particularly, the amount of discipleship I really wanted to do and the amount that I wanted to directly talk about God's word, it started to kind of narrow down to realizing, man, the best way to do that is to say maybe yes to joining a church staff so that it can become my daytime job, not just a part of the day job that I do. So that's really what it was for me. I would encourage anybody that's ever thinking about vocational ministry. It's going to be one of those things where if God's called you to anything else, do the anything else. If he's called you to that, though, if he's called you to his people and to ministering in his church, then do that and do it wholeheartedly, and know that it's part of your calling to go and be part of shepherding God's flock, if that's what you're called to do. Other than that, you are absolutely, if you love Jesus, you're carrying that ministry to whatever job you got. That is full-time ministry.
Well, that's what we've been doing this year at Valley Creek, is emphasizing that, you don't have to be in vocational ministry to be in ministry. We call it our Hope Carrier initiative, and I think it's been sobering, but it's had a great impact, and it's helped people realize that no matter what they do, almost no matter what they do, they can carry the hope of Jesus into that area.
That's exactly right. A hope carrier, a disciple of Jesus, living on mission to change their world, not change the world. That's way too big. To change their world, wherever God has called you to, whatever area of life he's called you to have a job in and to minister in, and you have influence and impact in, that's where you're a hope carrier. So everything from the stay-at-home mom is listening to this right now, to the business person that's trying to launch their brand new business, to the teacher that is teaching the next generation, you're a hope carrier when you follow the Lord and you carry him into that area.
That's exactly right. I want to say I love this church, and I do. I love this church, but I just love the way that this group of people, simplifies following Jesus and doesn't make it some unattainable thing.
Yeah, when you realize that Jesus was surrounded by fishermen and guys that were basically dropouts of society, and other people that had anger issues, and other people that struggled, with their identity, those are basically his disciples, the guys that he called to follow him. You suddenly realize, wow, really, the story of Jesus is going and find the least likely people, calling them to himself, and they go on to change the world together. So we like to think of ourselves as what Acts 4 says is the unschooled, ordinary men, people that have been with Jesus. So if that's you, that's me, that's amazing. God wants to change the world through simple, ordinary people that just will follow him and love him. So
it's just fantastic. Do you think any of the disciples ever struggled with forgiveness? That's what I was wondering.
Oh, that's a great question, John. I'm so glad you asked.
In fact, we know that they may have, and that's a tease. More on that in a moment. But what does forgiveness mean to you over the course of this summer? We were talking about a lot of things to do with family. We're coming out of Hope Carrier. We wanted to talk about family. That can be a good thing for some people. It can be a big pain point for a lot of people. And I feel like you guys, as as teachers, probably felt that. And you kind of closed it down with forgiveness. What does forgiveness mean to you? Why was that such an important topic?
Yeah, so let's start with this. So forgiveness is one of those deep waters of the heart areas. So when we talk about forgiveness, we're talking about something that represents so much pain. We're talking about something that represents so much possible freedom. We're definitely talking about something that is very real to the human condition and to what we all experience. And so let's start with what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not the phrase forgive and forget. And the reason it's not the phrase forgive and forget is because, first of all, you're human. You can't just forget. So you can't just feel like, oh, I can't remember anymore. It didn't happen to me. Forgiveness very much is an intentionality to choose not to remember and to choose not to hold it against that person or to let it have sway over you. So to say, I'm going to be really intentional to not remember and focus on what was done to me. I'm not going to forever want to see the downfall of that person and them come to ruin, and I'm not going to let it hold sway over my own heart. That's when you know you're really starting to walk in forgiveness, when it feels more like that. The phrase forgive and forget, I think, is actually a really illogical phrase. I think most of the time it's used so that we can try to pass off the disappointment, the sadness, and the frustration we still feel towards that person, but we just want to be like, oh no, I forgave and forgot. I don't want to think about it anymore. Well, in reality, it's probably that it's really deep inside your mind and your heart. You just you just want to try to put it in this deep closet of your mind so you don't have to think about it anymore. What's a way better way to think about it is almost like forgive and release, forgive and release. This constant over and over decision that I make to say, man, I've been forgiven by Jesus. And so I can absolutely take the forgiveness that I've been shown and choose to extend that to someone else.
It's really good. When I threw this out there on Facebook, which is, that's deep waters right there. If you want to talk about deep waters, now you never know.
Or you could say it's a, it's a hole. It's a, like a never-ending hole that you can just stumble into.
I will say this, that my friends, really tried to give some thoughtful answers and thoughts. But when people were struggling with forgiveness, it wasn't the forgiveness part, Jason. It was, well, I mean, if they think they can just walk back into my life and do X, Y, Z again, I'm not going to let them do that. And I have a heart for that, because I don't think that people are saying, you know what, you've got to forgive them, and then you've got to bring them right back to that same spot in your life. That's not what you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think that forgiveness in your heart and releasing offense against someone is the same thing as everything's going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
Because actually it probably won't, and in most cases it probably shouldn't. Mm-hmm. It's possible it could. Anything could be restored, but we're not talking about, like, let's say, living my life as a doormat. We're not talking about letting the person hurt me over and over and over again necessarily. What I mean by that is I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to intentionally let them damage me over and over. I don't know that that's the best way forward, but I do think that if my heart is open to say, man, if God can restore anything, if he can restore me, he certainly could restore my relationships with others. But I think a mistake is that we automatically think, oh yeah, it's going to go back just like the way it was. That's not really what forgiveness would mean. Forgiveness would mean that I'm open to restore my thoughts, my blessings, and my desire to see that person have have a successful, prosperous life. I don't wish ill will on them. If I can think in those kind of ways, I know that my heart is leaning towards a posture of forgiveness. One of the ways we say that is that I'm willing to credit the account. So that is, I'm going to release the offense and I'm going to credit the account. Releasing the offense would be to say, okay, what they did was not right. It really hurt me. And I'm just choosing to release that, to let it go. To credit the account is, I still want to see them blessed. I want to see good things happen to them. I want good things to occur in their life. Now, that's the secondary part of it. That's the more difficult part, because it means that you have to fight the desire to see them want to come to ruin and be damaged and bad things happen to them. I choose to bless them.
Because some people say, God's going to fight this battle for me, and I'll just be silent and God will burn their life down, or something like that.
Right, but that's not it. That's not it's not a healed heart. That's certainly not that's not a heart that wants to forgive. So that if you want to see the person get burned down and you just want to see this pile of ashes that is their life afterwards, that's probably a problem. You're probably living with some deep offenses that are by far hurting you more than it's hurting them. But one of the great ironies of unforgiveness is it does hurt you. It does hurt others around you.
Yes.
The only person it doesn't really hurt is them, because more than likely the person that you feel unforgiveness towards either totally isn't thinking about it, or hasn't really apologized to you, or hasn't really given it a second thought. And so you live with this kind of sense of, yeah, I just am actively bitter and really ruining both myself and those that I do love that are around me, not the person from way back when that did this to me. I don't think it means you're going to reset every part of the relationship necessarily. You might, and God wants to restore everything that's broken, but it doesn't have to be that in order for you to still walk in forgiveness for someone. In order for you to say, I canceled the debt that they took, the thing that they damaged me from, the thing they hurt me with, and I want to credit the account. I want to speak well of them. I want to pray for them. I want to hope for good things in their life. I don't want to see their life come to a pile of ashes. I want to see good things happen. That's when you know you're starting to live in a next level of freedom. The next level of freedom that says, I actually don't want to just see the person hurt, damaged, and damaged like they hurt me, because I believe that Jesus took on that pain, my pain, when he took it on at the cross. Jesus took on that damage when his body was damaged by other people, so that he is with me in my pain. He is a man of sorrows, familiar with my suffering. And so therefore I don't have to wish it on everybody else. Wow. Certainly Jesus didn't. So when he said something like, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, take you back to the Easter story. So if you remember the Easter story, one of his famous phrases on the cross was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What's completely baffling about that phrase is that he said that while people were actively killing him. He said that while he's getting his hands nailed to a cross and his feet nailed to a cross, and he's being killed unjustly by Roman officials, right? So he has this this declaration of forgiveness, asking for forgiveness for all people for all time, which means he chose forgiveness before any of us that are currently alive had anything to be forgiven for.
Wow! So
that is, forgiveness is a choice that Jesus made. Certainly before we did anything right, and way after we've done everything wrong, he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. I think that's a posture of the heart that we can have, that if we're willing to angle that direction, if we're willing to say, man, I just choose forgiveness, not even because I really want to, but because I choose it. That's a whole different ball game.
Absolutely. And these are things to, strive for, the next level, like you talk about. But I feel like, and you went through this a little bit when you were teaching, that there are steps you need to take to get there.
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to pick out is you've got to kind of acknowledge what was lost and kind of mourn that, because like you were saying earlier, we want to say, hey, we forgive and we forget.
Yeah.
When we do that, we're really not getting to the meat of what was lost or what was hurt.
Yeah, I think we oftentimes don't acknowledge what was lost. And when we don't acknowledge what was lost, then there's no way for us to cancel the debt, because we don't actually know what the debt was in the first place. A good way to think about that would be, let's say that you had an insurance claim from a robbery at your home, okay? So somebody robs you, takes your stuff from your house, and you make an insurance claim on it, but you forgot to put your 55-inch color screen TV, flat screen TV that they took from you. Well, the problem is, if you forgot to make the insurance claim on your 55-inch flat screen TV, then every time you go down to watch a movie, and you go down to your media room, or you go upstairs to your media room to watch a movie, you go to sit down to watch an amazing film, and then you think, wait, I don't have a TV. And then you say, I forgot to put that onto my insurance claim, because you never admitted that it's one of the things that got stolen from you. You had no way to actually work through that, replace it. And every single time you go to watch a movie, you're going to think, doggone, that guy stole my TV. And the problem with that, of course, is in the same way with unforgiveness, when we never take time to be like, yeah, that really hurt. When they did that to me, that really damaged me. And I still have like a lot of feelings about that, because you never took the time to actually admit it. It's like you buried it, but you buried it alive. And the next time that person's name comes up, or the next time you think back to what happened, it's amazing how that monster will come out from the grave, and it will start to wreak havoc on every part of your life, because you never actually admitted, oh, wait, that was really bad. That really hurt me. That damaged me at a really deep level. Because I think a lot of times we want to try to skip past the pain instead of feel the pain and invite Jesus into the pain and know that he's with us in that pain, and that'll allow us to actually start to move forward. So you really do have to admit what's lost. That's really the first way that you can go on a journey of forgiveness, is to admit, yeah, something's been lost. Another thing that's another step that I think is really important is that you be the kind of person that seeks forgiveness from others. So what I mean by that is, you might think like, well, why would you flip it on me? Well, you've hurt somebody in some way at some point in your life. Okay, no matter who you are, you've hurt somebody in some way at some point in your life. So because of that, if you can be the kind of person that says, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. Would you forgive me? And just whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't matter if it's a small thing, a big thing. When you start to live as the person that will seek the forgiveness of others, here's what it'll do. It'll take you on a journey of compassion towards other people in a way where you think, yeah, it's actually really hard to ask for forgiveness.
Yes.
And it's really hard to humble myself to want to ask them for forgiveness. So I can understand it might have actually been hard for the other person to want to ask me for forgiveness. Like, I think I can understand maybe why they tried to dodge it. I can understand why they maybe didn't have enough security to walk into that conversation with me. Why they didn't feel like they were a confident enough person to start like a forgiveness conversation, to say, I'm sorry will you please forgive me? So the more that you can go first in that, the more that you can go first in asking they may not be the same situation, a different situation that you want to apologize for. The more that you can do that, you'll release something in your life that you'll set in motion. And it's amazing how much freedom that can bring you in the process. So
I think about this as well. It's like, how much do you value that relationship, And when you come to someone and you say, I'm sorry for XYZ, and you don't put it off on them, I'm sorry that you felt.
It's not the way to go.
We know, we've heard since grade school, we're not supposed to do that. So when you truly apologize, and then when you ask forgiveness, you are telling that person, I value our relationship. I'm craving restoration here, if you can find it in your heart, or at least I'm craving you forgiving me and restoring to whatever extent we can this relationship.
I value the relationship, and I value it far more than being perceived as right, or being in the right position, i.e. your opinion about it was wrong, but mine's right. Actually, that doesn't even matter. I just value the relationship. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry I said that to you. I'm really sorry I did that to you. I'm really sorry for any of the way that made you feel. I'm sorry for that. That's not what I want, and I want to ask for your forgiveness. It takes a lot of humility to do that. It's not easy to do that. I think it's really, really important. So,
see, you guys thought we were talking about forgiving other people today, not apologizing. But we pulled that on you. We did that to you. Along those lines, though, you told a powerful story on that Sunday about how your dad kind of stepped in to a space, even for somebody that could not ask for forgiveness or could not apologize, to do that. I'm not going to steal it from you. Please tell us that story.
Yeah. So I have a really vivid memory of when my grandmother on my father's side passed away. And the vivid memory was, so the guy that was trying to lead the service is this well-meaning pastor who he really just genuinely wanted to say kind words about my grandmother. And he did. And he talked about her in kind of these grandiose, magnanimous ways at her service. You've probably been to a memorial service or a funeral where you've seen that. It's very nice of him. The only problem is he didn't really know her. And so when my dad got up to start to speak, he just took a second. And he basically he gathered his thoughts. He took a big breath. And then he said, many of you helped my mother in her later life in really significant ways, and she never actually thanked you or showed much gratitude to you. And in other cases, she was just straight up mean to you, and never was very kind. And so I want to take a moment to both say thank you for helping her, whether or not it was reciprocated from her, and also I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way she may have treated you. And of course, in the case of somebody who's passed away, if you're listening, you may be in a situation where literally the person that you wish would say sorry to you is either not in your life anymore, or they are actually not with us anymore. I think those are those kind of situations where in this life, or in this, the realities of us and our kind of physical existence, you may never get to hear I'm sorry. And in fact, many times the people who need to apologize to you the most are likely going to be the ones that will do it the least. That is, the same people that hurt you are probably not the ones that are in this amazing, soft, humble heart posture that says like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me just apologize for all these things I did wrong. It doesn't usually work like that. And so when my dad did that in that moment, he set something in motion, I believe, in the spiritual realm. And I believe there's a lot of freedom that was found for those that were listening. I think that there was freedom in their hearts, that his humility, his willingness to say, I'm sorry for, and just ask for an apology on her behalf. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in any situation, let alone that it was my own dad. And I was like, oh man, I'm so proud of him right now. I'm so thankful that he took that moment to just take spiritual leadership during the memorial service and to say that to everybody. And so for those that are listening, I do think, I don't know if you have a pastor in your life. I don't know if you have anybody that is a spiritual leader in your life. But for as much as even John and I would share our hearts with you, I think we would want to take a moment and say that hurting people hurt people in this world. And that there's probably been some stuff that's been said to you, done to you, declared over you, maybe lies that have been spoken about you that are really painful. And the pain of it is really real. And for many of you, like, time hasn't healed all wounds. In fact, if anything, maybe the gaping wound feels like it's getting bigger, it's getting greater inside of you. So if that's the case, if you're listening to this, really looking for a path forward in forgiveness, can I say, as somebody who loves Jesus and is called to try to shepherd his people and his church, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened to you, for what was said to you, for what was done to you. It's not right. It hurt. That's real. It hurts the heart of God when people hurt his creation and the things he loves. You are one of the things he loves, and hurting you and hurting his creation, you, is something that hurts his heart. And a lot of the brokenness of this world is not supposed to be that way, and we're not supposed to treat each other in those ways, and we're not supposed to say those things to each other, and little kids aren't supposed to experience the level of damage that they do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that level of damage sticks with us for a really long time in our life. And so once again, I'm sorry. Would you start to go on a journey of forgiveness so that you can be free, so your heart can release that offense, and you can begin to walk out a life of freedom? I really believe in the verse it says, if the Son has set you free, you will be free indeed. Mm-hmm. And so forgiveness is one of the critical pieces to freedom. Forgiveness is one of the critical ways that we walk in freedom in our life. And I think that's so important for all of us. So my dad did it that day for so many people that were in the room. I hope as you listen to John, as he pastors your heart during this podcast, that you'll have a sense that his story, his personality, his character comes through, and you feel, Pastor, you feel loved by him. You feel like the very words that he speaks are words of life, are life-giving, and that you would start to go on a forgiveness journey that would find you becoming more and more free in your life.
Gosh, guys, that's incredible. I really appreciate that so much, more than you know, because even this week, I did that thing, that grudge came up that I thought I had forgotten about. I thought I had released it. I thought I had freedom in it, but it came back up again, and it really made me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm exactly this. I'm exactly where I was before. I'm exactly back into that spot. And I believe that's not the case, but still it made me feel that way. And one thing that really helps me is your interpretation of Peter asking Jesus how many times we should forgive our brother when they sin against us.
Yeah.
Tell us how you interpret what Jesus was saying there.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. What if forgiveness is not a one and done, but on and on? Mm. So what if forgiveness is not like I say that I forgive them and then I never have to worry about forgiving them again, but if forgiveness is I forgive them today, and then I also forgive them tomorrow, then I choose to forgive them the day after that, and I actually, the next time it comes up, I forgive them again. Because I think many times what we do is we think, okay, forgive is like I just say, I've forgiven him. I'm done. I already forgave him.
Yeah.
I would just be really cautious on using that language. I would use the language I'm forgiving, not necessarily I forgive in. Mm. Forgiving, like it's continuous inside my soul, not just forgive in as if it's only back here. Okay. So one time, Peter asked this question. He says, Lord, how many times should I forgive somebody who sins against me? Should I forgive them 7 times? And Jesus goes on to say, you know this one. He goes on to say, no, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Now, what's interesting in the passage is my whole life, I thought that it was talking about like forgive them, like they hit me, slap me. Okay, I forgive you. They slap me. I forgive you. Slap me. Mm-hmm. I forgive you. Like over and over and over. They keep like hundreds of times. They keep on doing things that I have to be forgiven for. But here's the question. What if what Jesus was saying was that you're supposed to forgive them that many times, 70 times 7, not just 490, 70 times infinity. Mm-hmm. Okay? You're supposed to forgive them that many times for the one time they did something to you. That one time. Not that they kept doing it over and over and over. That's part of what we're talking about. Like you're not a doormat. You're not a punching bag. You're not going to keep yourself in the same situation over and over. Now, on the other hand, let me just totally contradict one thought with myself, which is this. The love of Jesus allows us to endure far more than we ever could on our own.
Wow.
And to love someone, and one of the ways that you know what love is that you really are willing to be taken advantage of. Now, that's going to be a very unpopular thing to say in today's pop culture, but love is willing to be taken advantage of because you know that your greatest worth, your greatest love comes from the Father in heaven. Yeah. Having said that, you have to put yourself in safe situations. You have to put yourself in situations where you don't have to be in danger. There's all kinds of reasons that you have to be careful and not just go back to the same situation.
Absolutely.
But the forgiveness journey could be that over and over and over, on and on and on, I forgive 70 times 7, 70 times infinity for the one time they did something to me. If you give yourself freedom to think like that and to go on a journey of forgiveness, not even to think about it as like a destination that I get to, but it's like a journey of the heart that I continue on, it's a whole different way to think about it. You'll find yourself actually living in more and more freedom because you're I don't know, this kind of sense that like you're bad if you don't, or you keep, or I woke up today, I still have the grudge inside of me. Yes. What does that mean? Okay, well, what that means is I'm on a journey with Jesus,
yes,
and I'm not there yet, and I haven't just officially arrived, which means I'm also on a journey of forgiveness, and I'm gonna continue to walk out forgiveness, and I'm gonna get a little freer, and I'm going to think of them a little better, and I'm going to credit their account a little more, and I'm going to release the frustration more, and I'm going to let the offense leave my mind. I'm not going to let it literally have control over my thoughts. The most painful part of a lot of the unforgiveness that we carry is that people live rent-free in our thoughts,
yes,
and their hurt that they gave us that one time has now turned into a hurt that continues on and on and on and on. What if instead of hurting us the one time and let it continue on and on and on, we instead let our forgiveness be given on and on and on, and we remove and replace that hurt and say, man, Jesus, give me truly a kindness and compassionate, to be kind and compassionate to them, to forgive them as Christ in God has forgiven me. That's important.
And Pastor Jason, I'm just telling you, and because I know this is going to mean a lot to other people as well, I don't know why, but that is a point that will stick with me forever, because I just think that we all have those people in our lives, or those relationships, or that thing that happened that for whatever reason, it is just so painful that our human heart, our human mind, it is sometimes a daily battle for us. And I think for me, it was, okay, yes, I'm human. Pastor Jay sees me, but Jesus sees me as well.
Yeah.
Jesus knows that it's okay to struggle. It's just not okay to stay there.
Sure.
And it's not giving me permission to hold it against somebody. It's just, it's giving me permission to, I don't know, fail without, losing everything in the process.
There's a great verse in Hebrews 8 that says, I will forgive their wickedness. I will remember their sins no more. I will forgive their wickedness. Mm-hmm. I will remember their sins no more. What's so interesting about that verse is it says that God's style is to choose not to remember, which is different than forgetting. He chooses not to remember, which is different than forgetting. Why is it different? Well, because if I forget, it's like haphazard. It like fell out of my mind somewhere. Like, oh, where's my keys? I lost my keys. Right. But choosing not to remember, I will no more remember. I will no more remember. That's profound. That's like an intentionality. That's like I'm actually trying. I'm very, very intentional to not bring it to mind and not hold it against those that I love. I will forgive their sins, and I will remember no more their wickedness. That's amazing. What a beautiful thought that God's very intentional about his forgiveness towards you and I, and gives us a pathway to be very intentional towards those in our life that we need to forgive. So don't think about it in terms of like, well, why can't I get better? Why haven't I like not screwed up and I'm on this journey? Think about it much more in terms of, wait, actually, that's okay, because I'm on the journey and I want to walk out forgiveness every single day. And I might take a step back, but I'm gonna take some more steps forward. Maybe I'll take a step back the next, but I'm going to go forward a little bit more. And then suddenly my heart is freer. My life is lighter, and I'm actively walking out forgiveness, forgiving as the Lord has forgiven me, freely, fully, completely, willingly, not out of compulsion, not out of drudgery, willingly. That's how I'm forgiving others.
And it goes right back to forgiveness being a choice. When God says, I'm going to remember their sins no more. That is a choice that God is making, just like we have a choice of whether to forgive or not.
Yeah, forgiveness is very much a choice. You know what else is a choice? To choose to forgive ourselves.
I have not, I've on purpose waited for the end, because I feel like this is the biggest maybe revelation I've gotten out of talking to people along the way in this, and is that it is prideful for us to hold something against ourselves and say, I can't possibly forgive myself if I have a relationship with Jesus, if I believe Jesus has fully forgiven and fully restored me back to the Father with the robe and the ring and the sandals and everything. But then I can't forgive myself. Who am I not to forgive myself? And I know that's not going to make sense to all people, but, and I'm not saying it's not a journey, but this is one of the biggest things over the last few weeks that I've realized is it is prideful to say, I can't give this up. I can't forgive myself.
Yeah, it's interesting, because if we say, I'll never forgive myself for that, like you say those kind of grandiose statements, right? You're basically making a statement.
It sounds humble.
I know, but what's interesting is you're making a statement that's actually in direct contradiction to how God feels about us.
Wow.
Why? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. There's a declaration of forgiveness that pours over our life in Jesus. So any statement I make that's different than that statement, fully forgiven by God before I was born, before I asked for it, and before I did anything to merit forgiveness, I was forgiven by God. Any statement that contradicts that is essentially putting our thoughts and our opinion about it above God's. Wow. So you're right. It is ironically prideful. Now, granted, somebody who's hurting their soul, to say, "Oh, that's prideful, fool!" Like, don't you know
that? Yeah, but I'm not trying to attack. It's more that I've been there when I've wrestled with these things for time and time and time, and then I'm like, wait a second, why am I holding on to this?
Yep.
Why? Yes, I feel bad about it. Yes, I've apologized. Why am I holding on to this? Because I'm making it part of my identity, because it's something I'm comfortable with living with that I'm not supposed to. We were talking about freedom. I'm supposed to live.
Yeah, so that is maybe one of the most ironic things about unforgiveness.
Yeah,
is that we often wear it like a new set of clothes that we got at the mall. But not only do we wear it like a new set of clothes, we wear it as like the only outfit we like to wear.
Yeah.
Eventually, it becomes such a part of our emotional wardrobe that it's like we wear unforgiveness all the time. Here's one of the craziest parts. How it usually comes out is in phrases like, "Oh, I just am hurt by." But what's happening is it's not just that we're hurt, it's that we're actually offended and we have unforgiveness towards, but we'll wear the unforgiveness and the offense as the word hurt.
Yes.
Because hurt is more palatable to other people, and it gains us followers. It gains us allies. If I tell everybody that I'm hurt, suddenly I have an ally. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're so hurt."
It's a victim word.
You got it. Instead of being like, "No, I'm really offended by him. I'm really having a hard time forgiving him." At least that's more honest, and it doesn't paint the picture as if there's nothing in my soul that I could take ownership for and I can start on the forgiveness journey for, but we don't usually go there. We usually will let it stay like, "Oh, no, they really hurt me. Oh, yeah, they totally hurt me." Okay, so what does the forgiveness journey say? How will you cancel that debt and credit that account? How will you admit to what's been lost?
Right.
How will you choose to go on this road to forgiveness? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a big one, because I think we don't forgive ourselves. I think we do wear that unforgiveness, but it sometimes hides itself in the form of I'm hurt instead of actually I really need to forgive you because I'm really offended by what happened. That was a journey we have to go on, and I think in both of those cases, it creates distance between those that we love in our life, and it ultimately makes us feel like there's distance between us and God.
I feel really strongly that the word freedom has come up a lot today, and I want freedom for people as a whole, no matter what the hurt is. But obviously, we're talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
If somebody's been living with something, either trying to forgive themselves or forgiven others for decades, and they feel like there's no way. There's no way. You don't understand, Pastor Jay. These are the clothes that I wore. This is the only thing I got, and it's not going anywhere. And I don't have the money to buy new clothes,
or the mental right, the space in my mind to want to. Sure,
I truly, John, I truly believe in the power of freedom. I truly believe there is freedom for everybody. If somebody is just in the worst way with holding on to something that they can't seem to forgive, why do you believe in freedom for them?
Well, let me start with this. Of all the things we're talking about, the first place that you need to start is to receive forgiveness for yourself. Like, not even just you forgiving yourself, like receiving literally the forgiveness of Jesus. Yeah. So the greatest irony of Jesus's forgiveness is when he declares that, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. That's still something that we have to receive. And you can't actually give what you've never received. And so I can't give forgiveness. I can't even walk a forgiveness journey if I never forgave, if I've never received the forgiveness of Jesus for myself. Where would I start? I would start there. I would start with actually saying, Jesus, I receive your free gift of forgiveness. I receive you as Lord and what you did and your finished work through your death, burial, and resurrection, and the life of Jesus that comes and intersects with my life and now becomes who I am, full of Jesus, full of the Spirit, full of the very life of heaven itself, and go on that journey to receive forgiveness for the first time. And then when it comes to the people that have hurt you, know that Jesus absolutely knows what you felt. People made fun of him, including his own family. His own friends disowned him and pretended like they didn't even know him. He was falsely accused for stuff he didn't ever do. He was literally picked on by mobs of people who wanted to get him and were out to get him. If you've ever felt any of that, like if any part of your life it reflects any of that, if any of the stuff that's been done to you reflects any of that, if you've ever been physically harmed, Jesus knows what that feels like. He very much knows what that feels like. And so there's this sentiment of aligning with Jesus in all of our sufferings and the realities of our life and being like, he knows what that's like. And he chose forgiveness. He chose to forgive when we very much didn't deserve it. And when we certainly didn't expect it as people, he forgave us. And so I would tell you to go on the journey of receiving his forgiveness. And then understand that the overarching thought about forgiving someone is that you're not trying to get to a destination. You really are just taking a step today. Yeah. A step like saying, I forgive them. And tomorrow you can say, yep, I forgive them. And then the day after that you can say, I forgive them. Not as if it's one and done, but on and on. I choose to live with a posture of forgiveness towards whoever, towards whatever was done. And I choose to live free because of that. Once again, the very person that you're probably hoping is going to be like this complete, like, oh, they had the mea culpa and they couldn't believe it. They're such a fool. What have I done? It may never happen like that. And a lot of times it doesn't happen like that. And so a forgiveness journey is like, okay, well, what if it doesn't? What if it never turns out that way? Can I still be free? Can I still walk forward by faith? Can I still say, I'm just going to keep forgiving and releasing, forgiving and releasing, living freer and freer and freer in the name of Jesus? And the Lord will just transform my whole life.
Obviously, there are steps to this, and it takes getting in the muck with somebody you love and just say, help me through this, help me realize why this is best sometimes. Sometimes it takes a counselor. Sometimes it takes a pastor, just a really good friend, and you can be honest with them.
Yeah.
But, the freedom is there. The freedom is absolutely there. And it's a journey to freedom. I think I've been calling this a journey to forgiveness, and it's possible for sure.
If you'd be open to it, listen. You listen to a podcast that has a pastor on it, so you gotta roll with me. Would you be open to me even just praying over the people?
Let's do it, man.
So
I was thinking the same thing. Let's do it.
Just love that. So Jesus, I just pray for every single person listening right now, to whatever their freedom of forgiveness journey looks like. Will you meet them there?
Come on.
Will you help them take this one next step of forgiveness? Will you just remind them that they're not alone in it? You are with them in it, and you are empowering them to forgive just as you have forgiven us. So I pray for each person listening to whatever pain is very, very real, whatever you're working through and trying to release, trying to let go of. Would you let go of it in the name of Jesus? Would you release it in the name of Jesus? Would you hand it over to him and realize, that's not yours to carry. That is a heavy burden. It's time to lay it down in the name of Jesus and know that you can live freely, you can live lightly, and you can truly walk out forgiveness one next step at a time, day by day, go on this journey of forgiving and releasing. So we just pray all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Way to call down some fire, man. Pastor Jason Hillier, I really, really appreciate it, Pastor Jay. I couldn't think of a better person to close this out. So thank you for spending so much time and just care for people that you may never even meet and helping them on their forgiveness journey.
Thanks, John. I'm proud of you. What a great podcast. I hope it just continues to roll along, baby. So
absolutely it will.
Jason Hillier, so much to take out of that conversation. I am so excited that I get the chance to share that with you today. And it's a blessing that he would come on the show, that he would take the time to minister to us in that way. And that wraps up this 3-part series on forgiveness. Now, that doesn't mean that we're just going to go about our merry way and not change anything. No, like Bob Goff says, don't just hear this and don't just tell somebody about it. Do something about it. Who do you need to forgive? I bet you know exactly who it is. Don't bury it anymore. Even if it hurts, you got to figure out what was lost there. You got to mourn that, acknowledge that, and then choose to forgive. Maybe it doesn't even mean talking to that person. Maybe it just means forgiving them in their heart, canceling the debt, and crediting the account as well. How can you do that today? Remember, it's not about where you've been. It's not about where you are. It's about where you're headed and who you're becoming. I'll talk to you next week.